time. Let's get going. Today's agenda, first of all, I'm going to introduce your host for this trip, Rose. We're then going to talk about everything you need to know to prepare for the trip and arriving into Tbilisi, into Georgia, where you're going to start, what you need to know about that. And we're going to touch on the itinerary, but I'm not going to go through the itinerary in detail. Only a few things to note along the way, but I'll leave you to sort of review that in detail and yeah, anything you need to know, and then we'll answer any questions that you have, and we'll go from there. So let's start right off with our fabulous host, Rose Marcellet. Good morning, Rose, since you're out in the West.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
No, is my audio on?
No, your audio's on. My volume.
Okay.
So I couldn't hear you at first. I was like,
okay.
Good.
No, I'm here.
Rose
it's a
is one of
sunny
our
day.
Wheel and Anchor hosts and also member guest on many of our trips. I think you've traveled on more Wheel and Anchor trips than I have, Rose.
I doubt that. That would be
Well,
a miracle.
Anyway, Rose and I just were traveling together in Africa a month ago. My God, it's hard to see.
I know, went fast.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, Rose has a lot of experience taking our trips all over the place. Her job, of course, is as a host. And I see many of you, I think, are new to Wheel and Anchor. You haven't traveled with us before. So a lot of this may be new for you. The role of our host is essentially the person to make sure that everything that we've arranged, all of the details, all of the effort that we've put into organizing this trip goes according to plan. So that's, I think, the first and most important job of the host, but also to make sure that you have a good time. So Rose is going to be checking in with you all the time, encouraging you. We've got a few free days built into this trip to get out, to explore, to do stuff together, to get to know your fellow members, and to have a good time. That is the Wheel and Anchor spirit, the Wheel and Anchor approach to travel, because we do build in time for you to explore on your own. And this is a great place to do it, particularly Tbilisi, also in Yerevan in Armenia. Great cities to just wander in, take in at your own pace. And as I say, Rose is going to be encouraging you to do all of that. And as I say, to make sure that you have a great time. She is not a local guide. So we have local guides in Georgia, in Armenia, that are going to provide all of the facts and figures and cultural information and all the stuff that you need to know. So don't be surprised if you ask Rose a question about something about, how old is that church? Rose does not know the answer to that question.
Nope.
But Rose will endeavor to find out, but it's the local guide's responsibility to really guide you and introduce you into what the culture in Georgia and Armenia are all about. Rose is also not a travel agent. So if you have questions, anything relating to your booking with us, your airfare, if you booked it through us, all of those questions, please do send an email to our office, to Paula, and she'll deal with any of those things because that's all handled by our team on the ground here in Canada, in Toronto. Yeah, anything else you want to say, Rose?
No, I like packing light.
Packing, okay, we'll get into that. We're coming to the packing.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you need to know for this trip, what you should bring along. First of all, I'll mention, passport. You need to bring your passport, obviously. Make sure you know where it is. Don't go putting it in someplace different than you normally store it. Make sure it's up to date. You also need, as you know, for Armenia, if you haven't gotten it already, you do need an e-visa. It can be applied for online. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So make sure, if you haven't done that already, it only takes a couple of days to get at most. Sometimes it comes in immediately, but please do make sure you apply for that e-visa before leaving. Rose will probably ask and double check when you get to Georgia if you've done that, because if for some reason you haven't, you can still do it when you arrive, but take care of all that from the beginning. Take an extra copy of your passport, even if you make a photo of the info page with your phone, and so that you've got the information stored separately. Same thing with that e-visa. A lot of them it's just a digital thing that you keep on the phone, but that's something I would print out. I would keep an extra copy of.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, if you happen to misplace it or your phone doesn't happen to work that day, it just causes unnecessary hassles. And that goes for any other documents. I think always about prescriptions. Excuse me. Prescriptions, perfect timing. I think about prescriptions. It's a good idea to have a copy of those, keep all that stuff in your hand luggage, and any other information that you might need to know. Well, we'll talk about it later on, but bring as well, passwords to your Gmail account. If for some reason you have trouble with your email, if you use Gmail or if you use Hotmail or if you use some other email provider, those kinds of things can be useful to have because, let's say, God forbid, your phone should go missing or or broken or who knows what, and you need to get some information online. Everything these days is stored in the cloud. But we've had these situations before, and then I'm like, okay, what's your password? My password's at home. So you might want to bring that stuff along. You wouldn't think about it, but it will make your life a lot easier if you have that along with you. Oops, that's
Mm-hmm.
jumping ahead too fast here. So packing. Rose, tell us what everyone should bring.
Okay. Um, one of the things I was going to say about airfares and your tickets, I also print those out
Yeah.
because if your Wi-Fi doesn't work in an airport, you're stuck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
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 Okay. So in your bag, the things I highly recommend are the hat I'm wearing in the webinar picture, something that protects you from the rain and the sun. Also, I think I always bring a hat or something to warm my ears and gloves. It doesn't matter if the temperature is only 10. If you're in a windy, rainy place, you need more heat than that. So, and also a raincoat. I always pack, and I have a good one. And I bring a winter coat because you never know. We've hit weather in Madeira, been there for 3 years. And the weather pattern was so weird last year, we were all wearing winter clothes for about a week. So I think we need to keep those things in mind.
Right. And so, I mean, a winter coat, let's just qualify that for a sec, Rose, because
Yeah.
I mean, you need to bring the weather in this time of the year in Georgia and Armenia is usually still quite warm. So it'll be warmer
Like,
than you would expect in southern Canada.
like a
At this time of
fall, it's a fall weather.
it's a late summer, early fall weather. It's
Yeah.
generally warmer than it is here, but to your point, to Rose's point, when you get up into the mountains, right, we're going to be heading up to Kazbegi, and we're going to drive up to a church that's 2,000 meters up above the mountain, high in the Caucasus range. It will be cool, and it's a very good chance it'll be windy up there. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, layers is always the key. That you don't necessarily need a parka, but if
No.
you have the ability to put on an underlayer, a wicking layer, and then like a fleece, it would definitely be not lost on you, and then a lined outer jacket just in case.
Yeah.
So don't overdo it, but yeah, I think Rose's point is well taken. We can't predict the weather anywhere these days.
No. No, and I think walking shoes, you need to be super comfortable in whatever shoes you bring. We're going to be doing a lot of walking and a lot of exploring. So, running shoes are very common, any kind of good running shoe. I happen to bring hiking shoes. That's my choice. And I was just going to go back on the documentation. So a lot of times people have conditions that they have medication for, but it's important to get the printout of your medication from your pharmacy and bring it with you.
Yeah.
Right. So that they just have to interpret it. And usually there's someone speaking English that can do that so that you're not always running after someone. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And not the chicken scratch prescription from your doctor that nobody can
No.
read.
No, exactly, right?
That's
Or you have a container and it's on it, but it doesn't have all the details. So it's important to do that. I always bring a few dressy tops and pants just because I like to dress up when we go for dinner. I don't bring high heels normally. It's
No,
kind of a
bad
waste of
idea.
energy. And
Bad
I
idea.
imagine that we'll be walking on cobbled streets.
A lot of
Yeah.
cobbled streets. You'll
So,
be walking on gravel paths to some
yeah,
extent. You're going to be going into wine cellars. This is a big, a lot of wine places, old cellars. So yeah, as you say, the footwear is important. It is casual. As
yeah,
Rose mentions, we kind of like to, have something nice to wear for dinner. There's some
yeah.
nice restaurants that are both in the program and ones that you might visit on your own. So yeah, having a little something nice to put on at dinner is always never a bad thing.
Yeah, we're not talking ball gown or, evening dresses. We're talking comfort and also, you know, little classy or whatever
Exactly.
you feel comfortable in going out for dinner here in Canada would probably do well.
Exactly.
Um, Other than that, I always bring extra cords for charging because you just never know. And usually when we're in a hotel, they will have chargers or know where to buy one if you bring the wrong one. Um, I also always bring a bathing suit, even though we may not be swimming a lot, we may have an opportunity, so it's kind of fun to do that.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and I don't bring tons of shorts and I don't bring tons of pants. I bring 4 or 5 of each, and that has to do, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And you're stopping for a few days in places like Tbilisi after the first few days, so there will be opportunities to do laundry either at the hotel
Yeah.
or outside. And so yeah, you don't need to overdo it in terms of clothes. You don't need a big
No,
giant suit for this trip at all.
no.
At all. You do
And
need to go ahead.
go ahead. No, you were going
I
to
was going
say
to say you do
something.
need to remember to bring a travel adapter. So the plugs that they use, the voltage in Georgia and Armenia is European, so it's 220, 230 volts. You do need to bring an adapter plug with the 2 round plugs. It's shown in your pre-trip information documents, so
Hmm.
that you can plug in your chargers and all the rest of it. Most of the stuff that you use should be it will be dual voltage. So
Yeah.
your phones and all that stuff is all dual voltage. Only if you have something unusual that you need to bring. If you like, what we found is some hearing aid chargers, for example, are only on 110 voltage. Sometimes heating anything with a heating element, a curling iron or a hair straightener or something like that, also may only be 110 voltage. If you're not sure, double check the label. If it is, and then if you can leave it behind. If it's your hearing aids, you probably can't leave it. You can't leave it. But then you would need to get a voltage converter that actually switches the voltage from 220 to 110.
Yeah.
That probably the best place to get that is on Amazon or like online somewhere. Or otherwise, you have to go to a specialty travel store or maybe even Best Buy or like one of the electronic shops has that. But that's a bit of an unusual case. Most things that you need will be taking dual voltage. Take
Yeah.
um, Ziploc bags and things to keep your stuff dry in case you should get some sudden rain. I always have lots of Ziploc bags to put my phone, to put my wallet, to put anything that I otherwise don't want to get wet. uh, and a small collapsible umbrella, if you have one, wouldn't be lost on you again, just in case the weather should change. And a light day pack for obviously excursions going out during the day. There will be some days where we'll be out for the better part of the day, and so you want to have some stuff with you, right? And Rose is going to bring you a water bottle, right? Are you going to bring a water
Yes,
bottle?
I am. I am
So
bringing people water bottles.
for those of you who don't have a Wheel and Anchor water bottle, Rose is going to bring some of our Wheel and Anchor water bottles, so you can leave that. We'll have one for you when you arrive. And it's a great little thing because it keeps your cold liquids cold when they're cold and warm when they're warm. And so that's at least one thing you won't have to bring with you. Um, Good. I think we covered most of the stuff in the packing section.
Yep.
Let's talk for a second about money, because this is always a tricky one. We're going to 2 countries with 2 very different currencies. Um, so you can use credit cards pretty much everywhere, but not everywhere. So this is one part of the world where I would still plan on getting some cash. Now, In Georgia, they use the lari. In Armenia, you use the dram. You've never heard of those currencies before. I suggest downloading on your phone a currency exchange app so you can easily convert. So since one dram is 1/3 of a cent, so there are thousands of them. So that'll be handy for converting. And in terms of getting cash, get some on arrival. Do not
Yep.
try to get some from the bank. They have no idea what you're talking about. And it will take them forever, and the exchange rate and the fees will be ridiculous, and the exchange rate places will not carry these currencies either. So, but ATMs are in all the cities and even the towns. So when you arrive into Tbilisi airport, go and pick up, $100 worth, $200 worth. I mean, again, if you're a shopper, maybe bring a little bit more, but you can use credit cards. So it's not like you can't. But if you're trading if you're doing stuff at smaller markets, buying souvenirs or trinkets or just a coffee somewhere, it's nice to use cash. Uh, I know somebody's going to ask me about US dollars. Forget it. This is not a part of the world where, I mean, sure, they might take it, but you need to use local currency. You could exchange cash, you could exchange Canadian dollars. And you could exchange Canadian dollars at exchange places locally just as easily as US dollars. So people say, oh, should I bring US dollars, change from Canadian to US and US to, I would not do that. There's no point. There's no benefit. You're just paying the banks to exchange your money twice. Honestly,
Yeah.
an ATM card will work as well if it's Interac or whatever the logo is. But I wouldn't only take an ATM card. I would take a credit card as well. That's basically the bottom line. We suggest Wise. Wise is a prepaid travel credit card. It's like a Visa card, but you fill it up with Canadian dollars. You can then, with the app, convert into these currencies, or you can just leave them in Canadian dollars and take it as you go. It will give the best exchange rates of any card that I have ever come across. It's why we use it. And then you can later on switch it in a click of a button from dollars to euros to pounds to God knows what. It's the traveler's dream as far as cards are concerned. There is a link to that if you want to get a Wise card, because it's a good solution. I'm just going to see the question here. Wise cards, yeah. So so the question was asked about Wise card. The information on how to get one is there. You get if you order it online, you get a digital card which looks like this. If you can see on my phone, that you can literally put into your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. But you can also order a physical card, so you have one of those as well. I don't even know where my physical card is. I only ever used the one on my phone. But if you want to go to an ATM, of course, you should get the physical card. If you order it now, you'll get it in 2 to 3 weeks' time. There's plenty of time to get it. Ask any member, ask Rose about Wise. We love it, right, Rose?
Yeah, I do. It just exchanges whatever currency wherever we are.
Currency and at a rate that you can't find otherwise in Canada. Yeah. Good. Let's move on from their communication. Do you want to? Well, let me talk about phones first, and then maybe Rose, you want to explain about the Telegram app and how that works. For phoning, we do recommend you bring a phone because you have free time in some places, and you to be able to receive messages in Telegram from Rose that she'll explain about in a second. To use your phone, you have two options. You can either basically use your roaming plan from home, Rogers, Bell, whomever else. It's expensive, but it works. $16 a day, I think they charge for it. Your alternative is to get a SIM card, either a physical one like you see shown in the picture here. Oops, I went too fast. In the picture here, which you can get locally when you arrive at the airport in Georgia, in Tbilisi. Can you get it? If you're going to go for a physical SIM, I would probably stop and get it at the airport because it'll be more convenient. Because the first town that you're going to, Tsinandali, is small. It's not a town; it's a village. So it'll be but it's not essential. There is Wi-Fi in all the hotels. There's Wi-Fi in lots of restaurants and shops. You don't need one, but a SIM card is handy. Or if you have a newer phone, something made in the last couple of years, a lot of newer phones use eSIM. So it's a SIM card, but it's an eSIM. It's invisible. There is no card. In fact, the latest iPhone doesn't even take SIM cards anymore. You can only get an eSIM. And this you can buy online. And I know everybody's going to ask which provider. I cannot tell you which provider. I cannot recommend a provider only because there are so many, and we just don't have experience with the eSIMs in this part of the world yet. I'm pretty sure they work. I've used them in many, many, many countries. We often use one called Airolo, AIROLO. I happen to use one called Fonus. I don't even know if the one that I have works in that region. So you have to do a little bit of online research if you want to go the eSIM route. The benefit is the moment you arrive, you turn on your phone, you activate the eSIM, and you're good to go. So, Rose, explain about Telegram and the app and why we use it and how we use it.
So Telegram is a way that I can communicate with everyone. So like the night before, if there's a change of schedule, I would say, I put it on Telegram. Tomorrow we're leaving at 9, not 10. It's going to rain maybe. Please bring items for the rain. It's an update of anything. If we decide to go out for dinner, I will send out an invitation and say, who wants to go for dinner? Or who wants to go to the pub? And then I don't have to run around the hotel or phone you directly.
Yeah.
And everybody is on my channel on Telegram. We can create another channel where people can talk to each other without talking through me. But it's a really good information. You know, SIM cards are only necessary if you're wanting to use your GPS or, you know, whatever, you want a map of something. Most of the time we have maps in the hotel. I mean, you
Right.
know, or the
Yeah.
village is small enough that you can figure it out. You know, when we're in big places, we usually do an orientation so that people are orientated to the area we're in and where things are. I think it's the most important piece is communicating to me and me to you and to each other is the reason Telegram exists. While you're in the hotel, you know, I don't usually send out notices unless I know majority of us are in the hotel, right? And then I would send out notice, usually at night about 9 o'clock, so that everybody has a chance to see it. Yeah, I find it very efficient. You can text each other on Telegram. We can share pictures on Telegram. We actually do.
It's a very, very useful tool.
Yeah.
And the one thing to say about it is, though, please do download it before you leave so that it's set up on your phone. If you, like me, are a bit of a tech, if you struggle with technology apps and stuff, you can get a member of your family or anybody of a younger generation to help you, and they will, in a matter of 30 seconds, have it downloaded on your phone and all set up.
Mhm.
Please do it before you leave and reach out to Rose and say, hey, and that way you'll know that you're connected to her, particularly for when your travel over, that we'll talk about in a second. If there's a delay or there's some issue, you need to get in
Yeah.
touch with Rose before arrival. That would be important. One of our members on the trip made a good point here is that you can download maps to your phone so you can use them
Yeah.
while offline. It's a very good point. So again, that requires somebody that is a little bit more tech savvy, but you can definitely do that somehow. And I'm not the person to ask about how to do that, but it's possible. Again, I always go to somebody that's around 18 to solve my tech problems, because they look at me like I'm an idiot. And when they, so get all those things solved before you go. Okay. All right, let's talk about health for a second. Actually, Rose, you want to cover this, or do you want me to cover this?
Well, I can cover it. Health-wise,
Okay.
I think usually in every town, there's an ability to find someone that'll get us to a doctor. You know, there's usually an American or an English-speaking system in place. And if you have any trouble, I will help you gladly to find somewhere to go. Health-wise, if you have a cough, a cold, you're not feeling well, then we need to do a test. We do not want everyone to come down with COVID again, for instance. But also, if you're not, you don't have COVID, test proves that you're fine, then you need to wear a mask around everyone, especially when we're in a bus and we're in a confined space, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
that's it.
I think that's the key point is that yeah, if you have symptoms, please wear a mask. Even if you don't know even if what regardless, it just makes everybody else feel more comfortable when you're wearing a mask. Just two
Yeah.
other points. Our trips are non-smoking, so we just ask
Oh,
that you
yeah.
not smoke, around other members when we're on activities, just because most of our members are non-smokers. So that's just important to note. And if you be mindful of alcohol consumption, you you will have the opportunity to sample quite a bit of good Georgian wine and other spirits. So just be mindful of that for your own sake and your own safety, as well as for the benefit of others. Um, yeah, and so if Rose feels like and we're not here to police everybody. That's not the case, but we
No.
just ask that yeah, you be mindful a bit of alcohol consumption.
Yes.
Great. All right, let's talk about getting ready for your trip and the arrival into Tbilisi. So a couple of days before the trip, or well, 24 hours specifically, do keep an eye on your email if their airline is anticipating a delay to any of your flights. You will often know in advance, particularly when you're flying out of Canada. If you are not going to make a connecting flight, it's very important that you communicate to two different people. One is to Rose using Telegram. Again, the reason for you downloading Telegram. And also on your transfer voucher, you're going to have a contact name of the company that does our pickups for us in Tbilisi. And because there is a long drive from Tbilisi to Tsinandali, about almost 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes, it's important that we know where you are if you're not making the flight. So if you're flying, because obviously there's no direct flights from Canada to Georgia, so you're probably flying from Toronto to Frankfurt or Toronto to Vienna, and you're taking a connecting flight to Tbilisi, or maybe you're flying via Istanbul or whatever the case may be. If that flight is delayed and you miss that connecting flight, you must get in touch with us and the transfer company, please, so that so the driver isn't madly looking for you, and also so that we can somehow reschedule something, because again, it is a lengthy drive from Tbilisi to our first stop in Tsinandali. It is also a big time change. It's 8 hours time difference between Eastern Standard Time and Georgian time, and 11 hours, of course, if you're coming from the West Coast. So it's a big time difference. You might want to consider using the Time Shifter app. We put details about that in the pre-trip documentation. It does help alleviate the symptoms of jet lag. What else did I want to say about that? So for those of you, some of you are arriving the day before the trip starts, so the 28th of September, I noticed, and those flights arrive quite early in the morning. The part of the world this is in, they don't get the most optimal time slots. So that's why your flights are arriving at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And you're going to be undoubtedly tired from the journey. You're going to get picked up. You're going to get brought to Tsinandali, but you're going to still arrive there by morning. I mean, you're going to by sort of 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll probably be, or even before, you'll already be at the hotel. The rooms are not ready unless we made any special arrangement with us for an additional pre-night. The rooms probably won't be ready until the afternoon. This is a pretty busy time of the year in the Kakheti, in the valley, where all the vineyards are, where we're starting the trip. So keep that in mind, that you may have to bide your time for a few hours until your room is ready. I mean, I'm sure they'll work as quick as they can, but check-in time is at, I believe, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Yeah, keep that in mind. So just to quickly go over the itinerary once again, I'm sure you've already looked at this in detail. You begin by flying into Tbilisi. We get right out to the so-called Alazani Valley, which is this valley here in between the Caucasus Mountains and these hills to the south. And we spend a few days discovering all about this is the oldest wine region in the world, right? The wines have been produced here for back to 7,000 years ago. It's quite remarkable. You're going to go into Tbilisi itself, have a good 4 nights there, up to the Caucasus Mountains into Kakheti, where you'll spend a couple of nights. Then down here again through the mountains, the drives, the scenery is absolutely beautiful into Borjomi, where we'll spend a couple of nights. We'll visit the Varzia caves before crossing the border into Armenia, and heading down to Gyumri for a couple of nights, and finally ending up in Yerevan. Oh, God, I'm already envious of this trip. I absolutely adore this region. The first time we went there is so amazing. As I say, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. If you have questions, let me know. But as I mentioned, you're going to be in the Alazani Valley. This is like the basket of Georgia, or at least one of them anyway. Beautiful, fertile valley with the Caucasus Mountains in the background, vineyards, all kinds of stuff to see. The food is plentiful. And I know already what's going to happen is you're going to think, oh my God, they serve way too much food, because oftentimes you'll sit down for lunch and they serve the food often as we're a group in multiple plates that you serve yourself from, right? So family style dining is that's the universal way things go there. And there will be tons. And I remember that the food is, I love Georgian food. It's phenomenal, and Armenian food for that matter. And there will be tons. Yeah, none of it goes to waste. But don't expect to lose weight on this trip is one thing I can tell you. You're going to visit Signagi as well, a lovely little town up on the sides of the valley. You can see there with the mountains in the background. And then you're in Tbilisi for 4 nights. We've got 2 full free days there. We did that on purpose because the last time we went to Tbilisi, we only had 2 days there, and it was not enough. There's a lot to see in this city. It is quite safe. And I know some of you may have read there were some protests a while back in Georgia because of some, resolutions of the government, all the rest. Very isolated. This is a very safe country, and people are very friendly. In fact, in local customs, visitors are considered gifts from God. So you will be looked at like a gift from God. So engage with the locals, talk to them. They'll be fascinated to hear where you come from. This is not this is not an over touristed place like a lot of places in Europe that have been in the media recently. So you'll be an anomaly to them, and imbibe in that. I think it's really important. On the free days, you're going to have a card from us that gives you access to all kinds of things. Certain cable cars. Tbilisi sort of sits in a valley with some high mountains right around it. And so, you can review all those with Rose as well as with your local guide about what's included in that, what things there are to do. One of the things I highly recommend in Tbilisi is to visit the sulfur baths right in the center of town. These are ancient dome structures. They are truly ancient inside and out. So, don't expect a four-season spa experience inside, but you have the hot, quite odorous sulfur spring waters that they will tell you have all kinds of health benefits. It's an amazing experience. Please do it, even if there's a wee bit of ick factor there, because again, these places are really old. This is a picture of the domes here, where they have the sulfur baths. It's a great experience. I can't tell you how much fun we had there. There's a museum of fine arts. There's lots of walking streets and restaurants. It's really a remarkable city to sort of enjoy. You'll head up to Kazbegi. You are going up into the mountains to visit this Gergeti church that's 2,000 and some meters above sea level. You're not going into any altitudes you have to worry about in terms of altitude. You're not going above 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters. We're even going to take you right up to the Russian border, which might freak people out. Trust me, the Russians aren't doing anything in Georgia these days. They got their hands full in Ukraine. So it's a pretty peaceful place, and locals still go back and forth across the border as they did before, because there's a fairly close relationship between the two countries. And this is a super scenic place to be. You're going to be in Borjomi for a couple of nights. They have this town is famous for its springs. They have a spring in the middle of the park in town, which you will undoubtedly walk through. That will apparently is the spring of eternal life. So it'll
Hmm.
make you longer. That's what they say. I can tell you right now, the water tastes a little bit nasty, but if it makes you live longer, what the heck? But try it out. There's free time here as well. There's a cable car we did not get a chance to go up to in Borjomi that goes up onto a plateau with some beautiful views. The countryside is absolutely lovely. You might even want to enjoy like a spa experience because of the springs and the thermal waters that are here. Something to consider doing in Borjomi. You're then going to head on a fairly long day via Vardzia across the border into Armenia. The Vardzia caves are this very cool ancient settlement where 30,000 people used to live in the side of a mountain. Is a lot of up and down. You can see from the picture here, the stairs. This is such a cool complex to explore. And so you're going to spend, an hour or two here exploring this wonderful. This is definitely one of the highlights, I think, of the trip, to visit this cave complex. You'll cross the border into Armenia, which should be a relatively simple process. We're going across a secondary border crossing that's not far from Vardzia, and then you'll end up in Gyumri for a couple of nights. This is the second biggest city in Armenia, so you'll have some program there, visiting Gyumri, and then you'll end up in Yerevan, which sits in the shadow of Mount Ararat that you can see here, which is actually in Turkey, where Noah's Ark is alleged to be sitting. And again, we have allocated extra time in Yerevan because the last time I visited with the Wheel and Anchor group, which was incidentally our very first Wheel and Anchor trip 6 years ago, we just didn't have enough time. There's so many cool things to see in the city. There's an art gallery that is terraced up the side of the hill, and some Botero sculptures outside. Everybody was really regretting we didn't have enough time. You'll enjoy it. Yerevan, also a very safe city. And a part of the trip in Yerevan, I must mention as well, you'll visit the National Museum. I don't put tons of museums into programs because personally, I think it's something that some people are really interested in, visiting various kinds of museums. This one, however, particularly the whole section of it about the Armenian genocide, is absolutely worth visiting because this is a part of history that largely in the West we kind of forgot about. Very, very interesting, very engaging. One of the best museums I've been. So it'll be a highlight of your trip. In any event, that's all I wanted to say about that. Now time to address any questions that you have that you haven't already raised. So I'm just going to have a look here. Yeah. So for the VE visa application, ask for flight. Well, you're not going by flight. You're driving overboard. So put land or put by road. That's all that you need to put. It shouldn't be an issue. So just put road or land because you're not flying. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's see. It's very quiet on the question front. We addressed everything. Wow.
Well, I have a note to make.
Yeah,
You
please.
talked about overusing alcohol, and I think a really caring aspect of that is that when you're jet lagged, alcohol will not make you better. It will make you feel sick.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So just wanted to put that in there.
No, it's a very good point. The inclination is to have, a couple of glasses of wine on the plane. Honestly, you're better off to drink water. You will feel a lot better, even though, I always have the same thing too. I'm like, sure, I'll have another glass of wine, but have a glass of water instead. Being hydrated is a better way to deal with it. And of course, when you arrive as well, because invariably you will not have drunk enough on the plane and you will be dehydrated. And so to Rose's point, if you then put alcohol, a diuretic on top of it. Anyway, listen, we're not anti-alcohol here, anything but.
Not at all.
But we've seen a lot, and so we just want you to be well prepared. Exactly. If you do have any questions, since I haven't seen any more come in here that we haven't answered, probably 5 minutes after the webinar is over, you'll think, oh, I forgot to ask this question. Drop us a note, drop Paula a note, send Rose a Telegram message. and she will answer your questions. One more question popped in. In past group tours, we are limited to one mid-sized suitcase. You're not limited to anything. You can take as much as you want. Keep in mind, however, you have to carry it. There is porterage in some cases at some of the hotels, but not everywhere. So in other words, somebody to bring your luggage from the bus to your room. So I always say in places of the world like this, where we can provide it, we provide it, but it's not available everywhere. So you have to count on being able to take your own luggage everywhere, from the moment it arrives on the baggage carousel to the bus, and from the bus to the into the hotel. Although again, in a lot of cases here, it is provided for, but we have no restrictions on the amount of luggage. You can bring as much as your airline will let you bring. That's completely up to you.
I didn't have a chance to look at the hotels in detail. Do they all have elevators, or are we
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
climbing?
absolutely. Yeah, the hotels, to the extent
Yeah,
that all have elevators, and um, yeah, so there's no problem there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, there won't be any issue there, and to the extent that it didn't, there would definitely be a provision for them to assist you with your luggage. You don't
yeah.
need a lot of luggage, is the bottom line. As Rose said, pack light, travel light. Because you're just going to be better off for it. The question was also asked about how arduous would you walking is when you're not in the city. Scale of 1 to 10. It all depends on what would you consider 1 and what would you consider 10. There is in the scheduled part of this trip. There is no serious hikes. We're going to go up to the Gargetti Church. You have to walk from the parking lot up to the church, which is, I believe, not even stairs, but a path, as I recall. But it's a 5-minute walk. It's, I would say it's 5 out of 10, if I can say that. And that
Because
maybe,
there's an incline, right?
yeah, there's an incline, and you're in the mountains. There is some up and down, but this isn't a hiking trip, so you don't
Yeah.
have to worry too much about it. If you are at any point feel like it's something is too much, then obviously Rose will, you can work out a place for Rose to sit down and relax while the rest of the group is going around. We go at a reasonable pace. We don't go quickly, but we also don't go super slowly. We just go at a sort of a normal walking pace. And that's basically it. So you just have to be, the most important thing is communicate to Rose if you feel that yeah, it's a bit much, but this isn't a overly strenuous trip. The Vardzia Caves, as I
Yeah.
mentioned, for example, that is a little more arduous, only because, well, you saw the picture. You are on the side of a mountain. There is a cable car or a funicular that takes you up to the base of the cave city, but it's all stairs in there. Obviously, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so they can't build escalators and stuff.
So
So
here's my point on that as well. In my experience on trips, I always bring walking sticks, and often people don't have them, so I lend them out, and people are like, "Oh my God, this is so much easier." So that's an option as well, to bring
absolutely,
walking sticks so you have something to lean on. So
yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah, yeah. Walking poles or sticks is handy, but
Yeah.
again, you're not doing long hikes.
No.
But there are some places like that. There are going to be stairs invariably here and there. One more question came in. Good question. Meals in family homes. Absolutely. This is going to be one of the highlights. Do you bring gifts for your hosts? It's not necessary, but if you brought something from home, and so this is actually a good tip, and thank you, David Carroll, for raising this question. It is a nice gesture, particularly in Georgia, to have a cultural representation of home. So it could be a little Canada flag pin. Those are the easiest things. You can get them for free if you call your MP in time, or you can get them at the dollar store. Or a little bottle of maple syrup that's what I bring sometimes for little gifts. Just small little tokens that represent Canada, that kind of thing. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Not a must. As far as tips are concerned, all of the tips, and thank you for bringing it up. I forgot to mention it during the webinar. All of the tips that are from the moment you meet Rose until you say goodbye at the end are covered. We cover all of the gratuities that you need to pay: drivers, guides, waiters at restaurants, whoever we need to tip, we will tip on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about that. The only ones that we can't tip is your arrival transfer, because we're not there to actually tip the driver. So if you want to give them a couple of bucks, by all means, it's appreciated, but not necessary. Also, we don't tip housekeeping. That's up to you. Not necessarily customary there. In fact, tipping in hotels is generally not done in Georgia and Armenia. But again, if you feel that you would like to, of course, nobody's going to tell you not to. But a very good point about the gifts. They have a custom in Georgia, which you will be introduced to, I'm sure, early on. They're all about when you sit down for a meal, particularly if there's a family involved, it's all about the tamara, the toastmaster. At the beginning of a meal, often the tamara will stand up and give a toast. There's lots of toasting in Georgia. It's a very important part of their culture. And so you will learn to do it. You should, just prepare to say something nice to your fellow. It's actually a great tradition, a great custom, I find. The whole toasting custom, very big in Georgia. We'll find out a lot about it. So thank you for raising the question. That was I'm glad you did. Oh, a couple more questions came in. Is the bus we travel in washroom equipped? Do you make regular stops? You'll make regular stops. We don't use highway coaches because it's just, it's not how we go. But there'll be Rose, all of our hosts know that we need to go to the washroom on a regular basis, so we'll be checking in. Don't worry about that. You'll make stops. Tipping in restaurants, otherwise, I would say round up to 10% is the way to do it in Georgia and Armenia. So, thereabouts. If the bill is $46 or 46 euros or the equivalent in lari, you can leave 50. That is so around, but no more than 10% is the way to go for any of your meals or anything that's not included in the program on your free days. Great questions. Thank you for raising those questions. I will make sure we include them on the next webinar. Good. I don't see any more. If you do have questions, again, please email Paula. She will be happy, or give Rose a message. And if she doesn't know the answer, she'll come back to one of my team and we will get the answer for you. I'm a little bit envious you're going back to Georgia and Armenia without me, but you'll have a marvelous time with Rose, seeing this incredible part of the world. And I appreciate you choosing this trip because we really, really wanted to run it, and we weren't able to run it last year. We didn't have enough people signed up, but you'll come back and say, thank God we went to Georgia and Armenia. Rose, thanks for joining.
Bye, everyone. See you in a month.
See you in a month in Tbilisi, in Georgia. Oh,
yes.
Did another question come in? Chat, looking forward to yes. Looking forward to meeting you. Okay, all good. Oh, how many people in the group? One last question. How many people are you, Rose? 12? 14?
I'm not sure at this point because the list
I think
hasn't been updated.
12, 14. It's not a big group. It's a perfect size group for this part of the world. It should be mentioned in your pre-trip information document. I must admit, I didn't look at the final number either, but it's around 12, 14 people, no more than that. So it's a perfect group size.
Plus myself, right?
Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.